Today, we are going to talk about the top 10 people who survived the impossible. You can call it luck, others fate, but whatever it is, the universe was certainly not ready to let go of these next 10 people. Number 10. Roy Sullivan. The unlucky man was struck on 7 different occasions over 3 decades. Apparently, he's a natural conductor of electricity. I know who I would want to be standing next to during a lightning storm. Unfortunately, Sullivan didn't see it as luckily surviving and eventually died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Number 9. Vesna Vulovic. More than 40 years after surviving a plane explosion that saw everyone else on board perish, Vulovic somehow still has no memory of the incident. While doubts have been raised about how she survived a fall from 33,000 feet, she still had to also survive a coma and partial paralysis. It truly is a lucky escape. Some speculate the legitimacy of her claims. Number 8. Frane Selak. This impossibly unlucky man didn't just survive one crazy incident, but a whole bunch. From a derailed train, fuel tank explosions, and a plane crash. Oh, and a bus crashing into a freezing river. Don't worry though, he also ended up winning the lottery, making him either the luckiest or unluckiest man in the world. Instead of rubbing the Buddha's belly for good luck, maybe we should start rubbing Selak's. Number 7. Aaron Ralston. Made famous by the movie 127 Hours, Ralston literally survived cutting his own arm off. Ralston was struck down by a boulder that pinned him to a rock for, you guessed it, 127 hours. Delirious, dehydrated, and desperate, Ralston eventually resorted to snapping his arm and hacking it off with a dull blade. Number 6. Morrow Prosperi. As a keen endurance runner, Prosperi was competing in the Marathon of Sands in Morocco when a massive sandstorm blew him off course. Somehow, he ended up running several hundred kilometers to neighboring Algeria, where he took shelter in an abandoned mosque and ate some of its resident bats. After a failed suicide attempt because he was so dehydrated his blood had thickened, he was found by a nomadic family and returned to safety. Number 5. Anatoly Gorski. As a researcher, Gorski took his job with the particle accelerators and proton beams very seriously. So, in 1978, when a machine was malfunctioning, Gorski took it upon himself to see what the problem was. Once he stuck his head in the machine though, his brain was subjected to 600 rads. 500 is enough to kill someone. Over the next few days, his entire face swelled up before it started peeling off. Somehow though, his brain was never negatively impacted by the blast. Decades on, Gorski isn't able to move the left side of his face. Number 4. Stella College Rugby. The now infamous rugby team served a plane crash into the Andes from Uruguay to Chile, but surviving the crash wasn't the toughest part. After they heard on the radio that the search for them had been ended, they resorted to cannibalism. By eating the bodies of their teammates, they were able to stay alive in the negative 30-degree nights, and eventually 2 brave souls ventured over the mountains to Chile. The team survived 72 days stranded on a mountaintop. Number 3. Helen Clavin. Most of us can't go a few hours without having a bite to eat. Imagine lasting 42 days without any food. That's exactly what Clavin and Ralph Flores did when their single-engine aircraft went down in the dense Yukon wilderness. It wasn't a freak accident, it was pilot error that resulted in Clavin becoming a minor celebrity and losing a whole bunch of weight, which she was really happy about. While Clavin was left immobilized from a crushed foot, Flores eventually wrote the SOS sign that resulted in their rescue. Number 2. Poon Lim. When the merchant ship he was on sank, Lim survived for 4 months adrift on one of the ship's rafts. Lucky for Lim, when the ship was going down, he managed to find a few cans of food and water to sustain him for a little while. His story was one of the most impressive, mainly because of how well he came out of it. With no serious injuries other than severe dehydration, Lim came out of the experience relatively unscathed, but with a hatred for raw fish, which he lived off for 133 days. Number 1. Anna Baganholm. For minor hypothermia, Baganholm survived being frozen alive. In 2000, when the doctor in training was skiing on one of her regular slopes, she fell through a sheet of ice and was trapped underwater for 80 minutes. Amazingly, Baganholm found a tiny air pocket to stay alive while she waited for rescuers. Her body temperature got so low that she now holds the record for the lowest surviving body temperature at just 57 degrees Fahrenheit. Think you've had a bad day? It's nothing compared to these 10 people.